This is happening. This is now. This is really a thing. This is something amazing. God's doing something here. But you got to keep in mind that Joseph's brothers didn't recognize him. It had been years since Joseph had been sold into slavery. And Joseph was a teenager when he was sold into slavery. Most of us have changed the way we look dramatically since we were teens. Dramatically, right? And here's Joseph sitting on the throne in Egypt. Not only has he grown and matured, but he very literally looks like an Egyptian. Rabbi Toby mentioned this last week. He's got the garb, he's got the makeup, he's even speaking Egyptian rather than Hebrew, right? And then Messiah comes, right? He tries to destroy Israel and the line of Judah, so the Messiah doesn't come. The Messiah comes, he changes his tactic. Because Yeshua says, until all Israel says, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, I'm not coming back. You won't see me again until Israel's saved. And the enemy goes, okay, cool. So now all you gotta do is keep Israel from knowing Messiah. So he goes out of his way ever since the first century to keep the Jewish people from knowing Messiah. And then the people that carry the truth of Messiah, which becomes the Gentile church, look so contrary to Judaism that the Jewish people goes, that can't possibly be our Messiah. It's fine if he's the Gentile Messiah, but he can't possibly be ours because he doesn't look anything like us. In fact, what the body of Messiah has done the same thing that Egypt did to Joseph. Joseph was a foreshadowing Messiah. And the Egyptians decorated him to look like an Egyptian. So his brothers didn't recognize him because he didn't look like one of them anymore. He didn't act like one of them. He didn't sound like one of them anymore. And now we, the body of Messiah, through the church development, we've made Messiah so unrecognizable as a Jewish Messiah, as a Jewish person, so unrecognizable to the Jewish people, that the Jewish people looks at the church and goes, that can't be our Messiah. It's fine if he's the Gentiles' Messiah, but he can't be ours. He didn't look like us. He didn't act like us. He doesn't sound like us. We've done the same thing. Now, just like with Joseph, a day will come where Messiah will reveal himself to his brothers. But I can tell you that I want to be a threat for him. I want to be used by God for his kingdom, not for the enemy. So I want the enemy to be afraid of me. But he says, who shall separate us from the love of Messiah? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or danger or sword, all of which are things of this fallen world? He says, nothing in this fallen world can separate us from God's love. Nothing. In fact, the only thing that can is your own choices. As it is written, for your sake, we are being put to death all day long. We are counted as sheep for the slaughter. But in all these things, what does he say? We are more than conquerors through him who loved us. Doesn't matter what the world's throwing at you. Doesn't matter the problems you're facing. You, in Messiah, should be a conqueror if you're walking in humble faithfulness with the Lord. For I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing will be able to separate us from the love of God that is Messiah, in Messiah Yeshua, our Lord. See, here's the reality. Most of us hit those roadblocks, we hit those difficult times, we hit the tribulations, and we immediately put middle fingers up to God. How could you let this happen to me again? How could you do this? Ignoring the fact it's probably our fault, but nonetheless, how could you do this to me? And God says, look, none of this is all stuff of the world, none of this can separate you from me. Just trust me. Walk with me. Be faithful to me, and I will take care of everything else. I have it under control. Trust me. Our prayer for our life, overcome the enemy's plan for our destruction. 2 Corinthians 4, Paul continues this thought process in verse 7. He says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay, so that the surpassing greatness of the power may be from God and not from ourselves. We are hard-pressed in every way, yet not crushed, perplexed, yet not in despair, persecuted, yet not forsaken, struck down, yet not destroyed. Keep in mind, this is Joseph's life. Paul's not talking about Joseph. But everything Paul mentions here is Joseph's experience. We are hard-pressed in every way, verse 8, yet not crushed. Perplexed, yet not in despair. Persecuted, yet not forsaken. Struck down, yet not destroyed. The enemy's going to kick you all over the place. That's what he loves to do. But you got to understand that God's not done with you. You're not defeated just because the enemy thinks he's won. You're not broken because the enemy thinks he's broken. God has you under his. Verse 10, always carrying in the body the death of Yeshua, so that the life of Yeshua may also be revealed in our mortal body. In other words, because of the death of Messiah, we who are carrying his death, who have participated in his death, burial, and resurrection through immersion, who have experienced salvation, are filled with the Ruach HaKodesh, we are carrying death's defeat within us. And there's nothing the enemy can do that can destroy us. For we who live are always being handed over to death for Yeshua's sake, so that the life of Yeshua may be revealed in our mortal body. So death is at work in us, but life is at work in you. But we have the same spirit of faith according to what is written. I believed and therefore I spoke. So we also believe and therefore we also speak, knowing that the one who raised the Lord Yeshua will raise us also with Yeshua and will bring us with you into his presence. For all things are for your sakes. I don't care what problems you're facing, what headaches you're dealing with, what life circumstances you find yourself in. I don't care how bad things are at work. I don't care how terrible things are in your family. None of that surpasses the grace and mercy that we find in God. None of that surpasses his love for you, his desire to use you for his kingdom and his good name. None of that matters because the enemy cannot overcome God's love and compassion for you and God's desire to use you for his purposes. Sometimes in the fleshly, we give in to the weight of the burden of everything happening around us. Sometimes in the flesh, we give into all of the consequences of our poor decisions. Sometimes in the flesh, we are too happy to run to all of the burdens that come with all the curses and lies that others have spoken over us. But the reality is, only we can give that power. And that power is fake as it is. Because there's nothing that can be done that can separate us from the love of God. There's nothing that can be done that can take away his desire to use us for his purposes. And so when we hit those bad times, when we put ourselves in rough situations, when others are coming for us, when the enemy is attacking, we have the choice of throwing our hands up like Jacob and saying, how could you let this happen to me? You made promises and now this is happening. How could you let this happen to me? Or we can be like Joseph and say, it doesn't matter what the world throws at me. I'm yours. And I'm going to be faithful to you because you're always faithful to me, God. I'm going to be faithful to you no matter what. Our principle again, humility and faithfulness are key to seeing God's plan for our life overcome the enemy's plan for our destruction. I'd like to call our worship team back up.